music can sometimes be a little bit like that toxic boyfriend that you try and leave and keep going back to.
What a way to put it. Yes, perfect example.
There's many times that I'm like, I'm done with singing, I'm not going to do this, and you always end up going back to it. Well, this was one of those times when I was like, that's it. I hadn't been to university because I'd gone straight into being a singer. I think so many people are struggling in life and not being open about it. And even the people that we think are doing really well. And I would never want people, I constantly at any opportunity to talk about the things I've got wrong and that have gone wrong in my life, because I don't want somebody to look at me, and I'm aware with the things I do, it can look a certain way. And that is not the reality. You know, I'm a single mum. That's really tough. I've been through some really tough things. It's really difficult in the music industry. There's all of that at the same time. And I think even particularly, again, for women, this pressure to have it all and do it all, it's actually impossible. You can't. You can have it all. This is what somebody said to me, and I love this. You can have it all, but not at the same time.
That's so true. Yeah, you can, because I think there's a danger of like, oh, I got to have this now. I got to have this all at the same time. We're like, well, no, have one, do well, or whatever needs to happen with that, then go on to the next.
There's certain things that need more focus, but trying to be an amazing mum to my small children, as well as being a, kick-ass manager and all of that. That's just, you can't be at all the things when you've got young children. You will look at people differently when you've been through hard things, and you have so much more grace for people, and everybody's just trying their best.
Welcome back to another episode of Candid with me, Lady T, in this new series entitled Taking Up Space. Getting insights from thriving individuals who are taking up spaces in different industries, from entertainment to health to business. Basically, any industry that I can think of or that you know of, I'm going to get them on this couch. Now, we look at their journey and how they navigate that space with their faith. And today, on this episode, I have an amazing person. I've known this guest for over like maybe 7 or 8 years, I think. Yeah, about that. And I remember the first time I got in contact with her was when I was doing what she was currently doing with another person. All will be revealed in a second. But anyways, she is an amazing music manager. She's a singer-songwriter. We're going to delve into that. And recently, a published author. Oh, yes. She now has a book, which we'll talk about as well. It's none other than the amazing Loretta Andrews.
I hope I can live up to this now. I mean, that was quite hype.
Was it? But then that's the whole point. That is your hype. Like, that is you. Because I think every time I introduce someone, they're like, Is that me? I'm like, I mean, that's your name, right? Like, that's you. How does it feel when you hear that, when someone introduces you and you're just like...
It is kind of weird. And to be honest, these days just makes me feel old. I'm like, oh yeah, I have done that. Oh yeah, I did do it. I forgot I've done that. And I've just done a lot of things, really.
And I guess, like, when you look back on the things that you've done, like, do you like think, damn, I'm good. Like, I've done it. Like, this is good.
No, because like hardly anything I did was totally intentional. It was like a door opened, or I just sort of fell into it. And like, I say this about anyone who works in music or media, to be honest, anything creative, it's rarely a straight line. No. It's rarely like, oh, I want to do this, I do this degree, I do that job, and that's it. It's actually usually this wiggly line. And everything I've done has been moving like towards what feels good, what feels warm, where I think I'm going to make a difference. And then I look back and I was like, wow, that was quite a journey. So I still constantly feel like I'm making it up as I go along. But when I look back at all the different things I've done, particularly in music management, I feel like each role was equipping me without me knowing for what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And I would never have known that. I never went, I want to be a music manager. In fact, when people said to me, you'd make a good music manager, I was like, no, I'm not a manager. I'm a creative.
I was the opposite.
I really resisted it. Really? Yeah. I never did. I saw that as like too sort of businessy and uncreative. Yeah. And especially with my background, having been a performer, but I love it. It's my favorite thing I've ever done. It brings together all of my skills and all the things I love.
Yeah.
And I'd never have known that if I didn't just sort of move towards doors that opened. Yeah.
No, I remember. So so I always wanted to do the A&R thing. Like A&R was my big thing, and that was because back in uni, so I started this degree, like music and management degree, and I was like, oh, what am I going to do with this? And then there was a lecture that we had, and the lecturer, this is how cool our lecturer was back in the day. This guy, he was like connected to the who's who. He brought in the then manager for George Michael.
Wow.
I was just like, I'm sorry. What? So we were just like, are you joking me? So he was there, so he was talking, and I was just like, I want to be a music manager.
Right.
So that was when I decided, okay, I want to do music management, and no, I don't know how I was going to do this, how I was going to accomplish this, because I'm like, and I wrote my thesis, my last dissertation on like, the role of a manager. Is it important or is it not? Is there a future for them? How will that? And I was like, okay, did quite well in it. I must say, I got a degree out of it, so it must have been good. So that's when I knew I wanted to be a music manager.
Wow, that's so different to Mike. I literally never thought of it and resisted it, whereas you like, this is what I want to do. What appealed to you about it?
I think it was like the development of the artist, like being from the get-go, from like believing and knowing that this artist is going to do well. Like you've got a good feeling about them. And for me, it was just like, okay, let me help, develop them, let me help shape them, let me help them guide, like, let me be that person where like I can, whatever they need to negotiate. It was just a whole bunch of things. I was like, I could be their, like, I guess they're like big sis, like a big sister to them. That's what I felt like I wanted to do and be a part of that massive journey, because you see so many. And I think also looking at then the likes of L.A. Reid, Clive Davis, Tommy Mottola, Benny Medina, all these guys, I was just like, yo, like doing the degree, having the manager come, and then looking at all these people, I'm like, I want to be like these guys. Like this is where
really helped to shape people iconic careers,
right? And I was just like, I want to be those people. I want to be like them. So yes, I think that for me, that's when my kind of the reason that I wanted to do it. And I was like, okay, cool, I'm going to do it. But then you know what? God has other plans. Other plans. It felt like I needed to be in something still entertainment, but a different side to it. Yeah. And I guess here I am.
And you have the gift of the gab. So
thanks. Sometimes I feel like I just don't. I can't talk. But apparently, yeah.
Sometimes your skills just choose you, and it's like, okay, I guess I'm doing this.
It literally is, and I think that's where I'm at right now. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'll work with it. All right. So let's go back, because you have an amazing career as a singer. You sang with so many people, but like, and you're a twin.
I am.
Sorry, I forgot to say that. I wanted to say that. You're looking at a twin. So, ladies, guys, if you want twins, you better receive the anointing of a twin here,
Don't know if it's anointing or double trouble.
Listen, but then twins are always going to be double trouble, aren't they? Like, there's not, I don't know any twin that has given their parents like a good ride, but have added
exhausted them.
Yeah, exactly like that. So you actually started off like singing. Had that been something way younger that you wanted to do, or was that again something that you just fell into?
So that rather than the management, I was all about the performing. So from very, very young, me and my twin used to sing together. Like from 3, my nan said that we would be on the bus and sing Wheels on the Bus in 2-part harmony to everyone on the bus. And we were just like, we're going to be singers. I was obsessed with singing, and I absolutely wanted to be a performer. My dad was a musician in like the 70s before I was born. And then, I mean, it didn't seem realistic. And in fact, I always tell this story I teach a couple of days in a music university. And I always tell this story because when I was about, I think like 13 or 14, and you have a careers interview.
Yeah.
And they say, oh, what do you want to do? And you go, and I remember this teacher asking me, and I remember saying just so confidently, I didn't even say, I don't think I even said I'm gonna.
Mhm.
No, I didn't even say I want to. I was like, I'm gonna be a singer.
Yeah.
Just like that. I'm gonna be a singer. And I remember her looking at me, and she kind of put her head on the side, put her hand on me, went, let's think of a realistic career, shall we?
No, she didn't.
Yeah. And like, to be honest, like, because everyone has that reaction, and they're like, how dare she? But she wasn't trying to crush my dreams. She was trying to manage my expectations, because when you looked at my life from this single parent, council estate family, like, why should I have my dream? And I remember her saying, look, 95% of people who aim for that career don't make it. But my takeaway was, well, I'm going to be one of the 5% there. And I remember feeling like, not because I thought I was amazing at it. I was just like, there's nothing else I want to do.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do music. But in those days when I was at school, it was just classical and just like a music degree. And like, even I didn't fail my music GCSE, but I got a really low grade because I spent the whole time just practicing Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston riffs in the music room at lunchtime rather than actually doing the theory. So the joke is I literally have had a career in music, and I think I got like a D in music because I just didn't do work. Just wanted to sing.
That's so rad.
Literally. So, but yeah, after that, the closest thing I could find to a degree that I thought I wouldn't hate was like in media. And I was going to go and move and do this. And then it was in the days way before phones and tablets, an actual magazine, believe it, real paper. I was reading a magazine, and this advert sort of jumped out at me like a bit of a cartoon type thing.
Yeah.
And it said, do you love singing and dancing? Do you dream of a career? And are you a Christian? And I was like, yes.
Whoa.
And it's like, come and audition for this performing arts school. And I was like, what?
They even said Christian in it?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. And I'd never done an audition in my life. Like, I'd been in school plays, but like everything that I could be in at school, but I hadn't sung professionally. So me and my sister got the train up to London. We grew up in Milton Keynes, got the train up to London, and we turned up to do this audition, which turned out to be the School of Creative Ministries that Carrie and David Grant ran.
No way.
And I like did the worst audition ever, because you had to do a bit of drama, a dance, and singing. So smashed it with the singing and the dancing. I cannot act to save my life. It was so cringe. I'm so glad they didn't film it.
That was something that could just
honestly, it was in the days before everything was filmed, and that is something I would pay to be buried. But yeah, amazingly got in and got onto this course. And then the next challenge was finding the funds for it. And a lot of our sort of church family were really supportive of me and Tash, and they clubbed together and helped us to get the money for the first term. So we moved literally with just the money for the first term. And it was an incredible year. It was the first time on that course with other creative people where out loud you could say, I want to be a singer. And somebody wouldn't sort of be like, they'd be like, yeah, okay, so let's do that. And I was like, what, we can say that. It was so empowering to say out loud.
And they were Christians?
Yeah. So it was for Christians who want to like work in the arts. And that was a really pivotal point for me to actually believe that this could happen. And as a result, after my first ever professional singing job was doing backing vocals for Sting and M People on the Brit Awards. And I wanted to find that careers teacher and go, look at me now.
No.
Yeah.
Wait.
I was like 18 and I was just like, I've made it.
Are you serious?
Yeah. I mean, it was part of a choir. But for me, I was just like, this is incredible. And I mean, I would love to be able to say, and then I went on to huge success. And it wasn't. It's very feast and famine in music. Literally. It is like you'll have work, you'll have a tour, is all going well, and then you'll have nothing for 6 months. And it's a very crazy way to live. But that was what started me off with this performance bug. And I just loved it. And then the next thing I did was audition for a band in Manchester. Straight after I did that school, and I was a dancer there in a schools work, and again it was a Christian charity, but we worked as a band. So we worked in schools during term time, and then we had this crazy double life where the band was signed to a record label in the States. So when we in the school holiday, so in the school term time, we'd be in front of like fifth years and we're like, all right, miss, and like, you know, just like swearing at us and stuff while we're dancing in front of them and all of this. And then in the holidays we'd land in Nashville and be picked up by a limo and play in shows in arenas. It was so weird. So weird. And then we'd come back and those kids would bring us right back down to earth. It was very good for the ego.
I'm
very
going to humble you right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to humble you.
It was good. It was necessary.
You're back. This is normal life. Yeah. Okay. That one was not real. This is real life.
It's much more terrifying to perform in front of a group of sixth formers than it is to perform in front of thousands of people in the States.
Because obviously, you're not going to see them again. But for those,
when you can see the whites of people's eyes,
exactly. For those in the sixth form, you're going to see them again. You're just like, these lot. Oh God, this is going to be difficult. I'm going to have to see this every single day of my life.
And they will tell you what they think. But it's good. It was a brilliant training ground, and I just loved it. I loved the school's work.
Gosh, that's so good. I think what struck me the most is the fact that it had Christian. And like it was a Christian, or for a Christian organization, like for David and Carrie, which I only found out later on, like years and years ago, they were actually Christians. So I was just like, but now saying what you say, it makes sense. And these two have done continue to do amazing work, in music and entertainment. So we're talking about like growing up. I guess you grew up in a Christian household, like.
No, not at all.
You didn't. So how did you get into how did you come about into your faith then?
So absolutely not Christian upbringing at all. I think a couple of times we might have gone to Sunday school. She got free sweets and my mum needed a break. But when I was in my early teens, my parents had split up when we were younger. And my mum had a friend at work who was a Christian who constantly invited her to stuff. And she was a little bit eye-rolly about it. But she really loved this lady, a very good friend of hers. And then I remember this one particular week, and she's like, I'm going to have to go to something because it's getting embarrassing that I'm just turning down. So she went to this event, and it turned out to be a Billy Graham event, but it was actually even like a Saturday link up to it. So you're just in this hall watching, and he's in, I don't know, Wembley or somewhere.
Oh, wow.
And she came back that night. And the first thing is, I remember her coming in the door, and she looked different. I can't even explain it, but she looked different. Like she'd struggled with a lot of depression, and it'd been a hard situation. And she just looked, I don't know, I can't even explain it. She just looked different. And we were like,
changed basically. Yeah. Everything about her changed.
And I remember me and Tash going, what's happened? And she's like, I've become a Christian. And I was like, what does that mean? That sounds really weird. And she's like, I know it sounds really weird, but I'd love you to come and see for yourself. She said, I don't want you to go on my opinion or what you've heard or what you think. She said, I had so many stereotypes. I want you just to come with an open mind. And we were really close to my mum growing up. My mum had us really young, so it was more like sort of three girls sharing a house. So to be honest, I was just really curious to see this thing that like literally changed my mum overnight. So we started going along to the church that this friend had invited her to. And the first time we went, so it was like a charismatic church. And again, I didn't even know that churches like that exist. I just thought, organ, old ladies on pews type thing. Although I'd actually like that kind of church these days, to be honest. But we went along, and there was like a live band, and obviously we were really into music. So I was like, okay, well, that's not what I thought it was gonna be like. And then they like called the young people out to go to this youth club, and the youth were always doing really cool stuff, like doing just clubs and sports and all different things like that. And they were into the same music that I was into. They dressed the same as me, because I just thought, these are not going to be people that I want to hang about with. And they had a great sense of humour. But I did think the church thing was really weird. I was like, what are these people just dancing around and singing to Jesus? This is so weird.
I feel like a culture shock from what you used to, what you would perceive
when you're used to church culture. If you're not, it's what's going on.
It's like, oh my God, like, what are these people doing? Like, oh my God.
And everyone was so happy. I was like, why are you so happy? But I have to say, I was just so intrigued because that everyone just seemed so peaceful, and they had this joy. And obviously I'd seen with my mum. So then someone came over to us after we'd been a couple of times on a Sunday and said, oh, we actually have a youth group. Why don't you come along? And again, I was like, oh, this is going to be so dull, so dry. But we just felt a bit embarrassed. So we're like, okay, yeah, we'll come along. And someone picked us up, and it was just so cool. Still now, we had some great times and made some great friends there. So we started going along. They had like a sports night, and then they had like a fun night, and they would do a bit of Bible reading and stuff. And then at the end of one particular, and I'm sure the youth leaders did this just for me and my sister's benefit, but he basically like said the gospel. And I, believe it or not, and this is what Christians forget, I'd never heard that before. So I had not connected the Christmas story and the Easter story. When I heard about Easter, Christmas with the baby being born, I didn't realize that was the guy that grew up at Easter. I was like, oh, it's the same guy. They're connected.
I mean, it's easily, well.
But I like to remind Christians of this because when it's a part of your life, you forget that there's people out there who don't know that.
Yeah,
or know the significance of it. You know, Easter was just like bunnies and chocolate to me. Yep. So I just like the cross bit sort of bypassed me. So it was the first time someone actually explained it and what it meant. And I've always been a very logical, rational person. And this guy also spoke about like, you know, that you could be forgiven for everything you've done and that you could have this father figure, which I'd never really had. And then he was like, does anyone want to become a Christian? And I literally remember thinking, well, duh, yeah. Like, that sounds like a really good bargain. Like, so I get this father figure, I get God in my life, I get the Holy Spirit. And also I thought very pragmatically about it. I was like, well, how do you know anything works by trying it? Like, I've got nothing to lose. So I just put my hand up and he came over and like prayed the prayer and he's like, well, that's it, you're a Christian now. I was like, cool.
That was it. Like,
I mean, he gave us a lift home and my sister hadn't put her hand up and in the car he's like, oh, Natasha, do you want to? And she said, I did. I was just a bit nervous. So then in the car, she like prayed the prayer and became a Christian. So the same night we both became a Christian. And yeah, I mean, the weird thing is obviously becoming a Christian so young. I think I thought that meant I was going to have a perfect life and nothing was going to harm me and everything was going to be cool. So the first time I heard that, oh yeah, no, you do still go through stuff. Yeah. And obviously all my
almost
difficult stuff has been since I became a Christian. But obviously the difference is that you have that faith to guide you through and you have that purpose. And time again, I felt that God proved himself to me to be there. And even at times when I've really put my faith down in an intentional way to deconstruct it, to build it up again and go, am I just doing this because now I've just got used to this and I'm only going to do the things that feel real and actually make a difference to me. And there's some things I didn't pick up again about it, but there's other things that I just can't get away from that is true and that's made a difference in my life.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how. So I think I was like in my maybe 14 or 15 that night when that happened.
That's amazing. And, you know, because I think when you look at certain people, for me, I feel like, oh, they've been a Christian all their life because you see what they do, you see how they operate and, you know, how they conduct themselves. So you would think like, you know, since when they were young, you know, from like, you know, pre-teens, you know, from your mum and dad taking you to church all the time. That's what I thought. But hearing your story
so much
from that, like, I was like, no.
I'm really glad that I didn't because it's always helped me to understand people from a non-faith background easier. And also the parts of faith and church that are just tradition and nothing to do with what the Bible says. Coming into it, I'm like, why do you do that? I mean, I was always in trouble at youth group because I put my hand up and go, well, what exactly do you mean by that? And the amount of times that I would just trip up the youth. Well, I don't know really what that's how we do it. And I'm just like, but why? And can you show me that bit in the Bible where it says that? And then they're like, can't. So it was good because it helped me, I think, to have a really authentic faith because I just questioned everything. And to me, you've got to be able to have an answer for that. You can't just blindly go along with this because it's a club.
And I think it is healthy to ask questions because that's the only way you can really fully understand why things are done the way they are or why this particular thing happened and then how you are to apply it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally got my youth leader's nerves and I was like the troublemaker, but I've always been the person to ask the awkward question that everyone's thinking really, but I'll just say it out loud.
Loretta was the only one bold enough to do such that. And I think for them it's good because you're asking them if they're not sure, then they need to go back and read. They need to go back and study.
And I wanted to be able to have an answer as well to people, to the difficult questions. If we can't, then
what's the point?
Yeah.
What's the point in all of this? There's no point whatsoever. Whatsoever at all. All right. So, you know, you come into the faith the way that you did, and then you auditioning for the David and Cary Grant school, the dancing. So like, what other like things did you get to do with music? You know, being a singer, because obviously you guys wrote songs. Because what was the name of you and you ended up being in the group you and your sister?
Yeah, so first the band in Manchester was, at the time, it was called the Worldwide Message Tribe, and then it was the Tribe, which morphed into what we know now as the Message. So it was the very first band that they had. So,
no way!
Yeah.
Oh my!
So
this is royalty.
It was. I don't know about
the beginning. The beginning of wow.
But I learned so much there. So, and then out of that was the band Shine. So we used the same model that had worked in schools in Manchester. We were like the first plant back to my hometown of Milton Keynes. And then, so it was just me in the tribe. And then I joined my sister and 2 others. And we used the same model. It was like in the Spice Girls era. So we were a girl group and we worked in the schools in Milton Keynes, and we also got a record deal in the States. That funded the schools' work. So that model really worked to be able to do the work in the schools with young people and with churches, and the record deal like funded that.
So with the record deal, was that to be able to do like just normal music or gospel music, or was it just whatever you decided that you wanted to do?
Yeah, I mean, things are really different in the States. It's changed a bit now, but back then, like, to be a Christian artist in the States was massive. People had lucrative careers. It's very difficult to make it here in the UK as a UK Christian or gospel artist, but they've got the infrastructure there. So like the Christian charts was as big alongside the pop charts or the dance charts. So the labels were huge. They were given advances and all of the things that you would see with a normal record label. And like I said, there was the infrastructure there were big tours, huge Christian festivals. So we were signed to a label that came under a secular label, but they had a Christian label under it. And we would go and do festivals and tours. We released music through them that they would market in the States, and then the royalties and the things from that would fund the charity here. So we were just on a youth worker's wage, but all of the money was funded back into the charity work.
Gosh, that's amazing! Like, that is so good to know. I don't think I knew that part of your career, of your journey. But
it was a long time ago. A long time ago.
I mean, yes, it was a long time ago, but then that's a success in itself, though. Like, you got a deal like that, which a lot can't struggle to get now.
Yeah, times have changed.
The structure was different.
Yeah,
that it was a lot easier to get.
And they're not giving out the kind of deals that they were then. And the in music industry models changed now as well, with more independent artists as well. A needed change, in my opinion. But yeah, those were kind of the heydays of being signed to a label.
Yeah, the free money. But then you got to
that
make
we
it
didn't
back.
see any of, but still,
right? And that, because you're just like, okay, like I thought we were supposed to have this thousands of pounds.
No,
you got to make this first before you can even think of that's hella wild. All right, so when did you decide that you and your sister were going to go at it alone, like by yourselves, and start like let's do our own thing?
Well, so there's a few bits in between. So after Shine, then we all went our different ways, and we're doing various different things. And then at that point, we'd got into a band called United Colours of Sound, which was doing a lot of showcases for record labels. And we were like on the verge of being signed for about a year, and all these labels it was an amazing band of like 12 lead singers. It was amazing. I was like in awe of all these people that I got to be in this band with, but it was one of the most soul destroying years I've ever had, because we never performed. All we did was showcase for labels. It was chasing that record deal. In those days, the only way you could have a viable music career was to be signed to a major.
Yeah.
So they all wanted to. They're like, oh, this new band, but they didn't know how to market us because there was nobody like us. So nobody quite said it. So we were just constantly doing these things. And in the end, we were signed and then bottom drawed, which is when someone signs you so no one else can, but they don't release your music.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I am done with this. So music can sometimes be a little bit like that toxic boyfriend that you try and leave and keep going back to.
What a way to put it. Yes, perfect example.
There's many times that I'm like, I'm done with singing, I'm not going to do this. And you always end up going back to it. Well, this was one of those times when I was like, that's it. I hadn't been to university because I'd gone straight into being a singer. So I decided to apply for uni, and I was like, right, I'm going to go into TV because that's still a little bit like performing, but it's away from all this music stuff. So I applied for this media arts degree. And in the first term, you had to do a taster of first radio, magazine production, and then TV. And I was like, well, I know I want to do TV. Anyway, we had to do the radio. And I just fell in love with radio. I'd never thought of radio ever.
Wow.
And I was like, this is amazing. I get to talk, which I love.
Yeah.
I get to hear people's stories, and it's still a bit to do with music. So I changed my whole degree to focus on the radio and graduated from there. And that's when I got my first job working at Premiere. Yeah. So I was like, I'm not going to do music. But then me and Tash were like, oh, let's just do an outlet for music, just so we've got a musical outlet. So we started our band, low-key pretending we weren't taking it seriously, but totally were.
Really, like, yeah, we need to do this.
Literally. And then, so I was working at the radio station and in the band, and then the band ended up supporting Take That on tour. So I say not taking it seriously.
I was very, very. I think when you were supporting Take That, it's probably like when I got to know about you through the our first episode guest, DJ G. That's how I got to know about. Yeah, that's how I got to know about you guys. And so I mean, it was like I said, this was meant to be just a hobby, but then that music just draws you back in, and there's no feeling like performing, and I just loved it. But during that time on the gigging circuit, I met so many amazing musicians who were so talented. But at that time, again, the gatekeepers were the major labels and the big radio stations, and it was very hard to get radio play. So I pitched to the radio station, hey, how about we do a show that's for unsigned artists so they can have their first interview and their first live performance. And they're like, well, just make a pilot and see how it went. And that went well and continued. And to start with, I just interviewed all my friends. They were all amazing. And I was just like, people need to hear this music. And then, of course, as you know, it took off, and people would send me auditions because people wanted to get some radio play. And it was just such a privilege to be at that beginning part of people's journey, to be able to give people, and as you know, you've given people their first interviews and they remember it their whole career, and also just talented people. Yeah. But what happened is I'd end up having a longer conversation off air than on air, because I'd be like, this music's great. What are you going to do next? They'd be like, oh, didn't really think about that. I just wanted to make this track, and I'd get really frustrated because I'm like, you guys are so good. And I naturally enjoyed connecting people. So I'd be like, oh, I had this producer on last week, you should speak to them. And at that stage I knew Governor B, and he was like, oh, you'd make a really good manager, you're really good, you love doing all that. And I was like, I'm not manager, I'm a creative. And he'd be like, yeah, whatever. And then a few other people kept saying, you'd make a really good manager. And I was like, no, I just like mentoring people, like from my school's work. And then I think it was Gov said to me, well, isn't a good manager a mentor? And I was like, well, I suppose so. So in my head, I had to not call it that. And then sort of, think about it that way. So that's how that started. Oh my gosh. Wow. And I feel like a lot of managers, I think some had some kind of link to music in some sort of way. Like, you know, they were either singing or they were attached to something, like maybe as a musician or something, you know, and then diversifying, like, okay, I'm going to do this actual management thing full time. So with radio, I mean, you had a very successful like radio career. Like, I mean, helping artists, you know, getting them on, and that, like, what was that journey like? Doing again radio? Unexpected. I joined the radio station and said I was going to stay for a year. And I was like, I'm just going to cut my teeth here, and then I'm going to go off and I wanted to do documentaries originally, like music documentaries. And I think in total, I handed my notice in 4 times over the years. And then they're like, how about this? And I'd end up staying at, you know, I was on the breakfast show, like coming back again. Like, you see? And there was always a really good reason to stay. I think I
did co-host on the breakfast show for a while, and I was like, okay, that would be good. And then I had the idea of Unsigned, and I was like, well, that'd be good. I'll do that for a while. And then various things happened. So yeah, I stayed there much longer than I meant to. So 12 years longer.
Wild.
And towards the end, when I was the drive time host, and I started managing. Well, me and Gov didn't even call it management. He was like, "Look, I'm on my next project. I don't want a manager, but I'd love to have someone to sort of partner with." He's like, "You're so passionate about music, aren't you?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I've always been passionate about music. Independent artists in particular, I think are the hardest working people out there. So I was like, "Yeah, I'll be your sounding board." Like, we didn't even call it management. And it was more like brainstorming, hearing his ideas, going, "Why don't you try this?" And this was while, he started writing one album. And then, of course, he lost his dad, as very publicly known. And then we completely started again and started with Hands Are Made for Working. And, of course, that was the album. That was his sort of big crossover point. And we worked together and really well. And when it finished, we had started talking about the next album. They were like, "Oh, we're doing another album together, are we? Like, maybe we should make this official." And so it was like not any big kind of thing like that. And I felt like I was making it up as I went along. But what I'd realized, that everything I'd done, like from the school's work to being a signed artist to being in radio, with what the job of a manager is today, where you need to know a little bit of all those things, it had been skilling me up for that without me knowing. Like, I was like, "Oh, I haven't got a music management degree," but I'd had all the practical experience. And I was just really passionate about my artists and believed in what they were doing and willing to work really hard. So I went part-time, and then I got selected by MMF, Music Managers Forum, and YouTube Music ran this program called the Accelerator Program for managers sort of on the cusp of going full-time. So I got on the first year of that. And that was sort of, a game-changing year where I got mentorship, a bit of funding. And during that year, by the end of it, I took the leap to sort of go full-time in management.
Come on. Quite scary. Come on. And then I guess that's where Safe Music, because I think you started the name, your management company, Safe Music Management, I think probably just before the Accelerator program. What made you call it Safe Music Management?
So I had this idea that everyone thinks that the music industry is so cutthroat, which it is. But I was also like, everywhere you go, there's good people. And I believe how you do things attracts like-minded people.
100%.
So much. And there was a lot wrong with the old model of the music industry. But the bit I did like is you could release some music, say you got to number 30 in the charts, and they'd go, "Great, that's brilliant, well done. Right, let's see if we can get to number 20 for the next release." And they would invest in artists long term. You had room to make mistakes, to find your sound. These days, they're like, "You need to be number 1 or number 2 in your first ever release. If you're not, we're going to drop you and you're a failure."
Mad.
And artists, no other industry is that amount of pressure. Even athletes, you beat your personal best. You do want to go, okay, next time. But the pressure to be the best straight away, you've got one shot and that's it. And I wanted to create an environment where artists could feel safe to make mistakes, to explore who they were, to feel like they weren't on this timeline that I've got to do this, but it was a longer journey. And also I wanted to lead what I did with integrity, and to be like, I mean, you don't want to get on the wrong side of me or mess with me.
I mean, listen, for anybody who does their thing right, they have the right heart about what they do, but then you mess with me, it's like,
I mean, I'm going to be honest. Honesty is my thing. But at the same time, I really believe you can be a good businesswoman, be a good manager, and be a nice person to work with. And it's funny because when I started being a manager and I met with a couple of people who I knew who were managers, and I said, "Oh, have you got some advice for me?" And the 2 bits of advice I was given, I've never followed. So one was, I was like, "I really want to be, a nice person and be good at this." And they went, "I'll give you a year." And they're like, "It's impossible to be a nice person and do this job." And I was like, "Well, I'm not following that advice. I'm going to be," and I hope even people all these years later who work with me would say I'm a nice person. And then the other advice was, don't be friends with your artists. Never manage your friends. And I'm friends with all my artists. I'm godmother to one of my artists' children. So I really didn't get that one right.
It's like, well, we're gonna break the mold with this one.
Yeah.
Wow, so they told you not to be nice.
They just said it's impossible. They said, the person you are now, you will not be this person after a year. And I was just like,
why is it so hard to not be nice? Like, why do I have to be mean to get something? Like, I
think people see it as weakness or that you're going to be taken advantage of.
Well, no, but you just stand up for your rights. I'm like, if you're doing something wrong, I'm going to call you out on it. But my nature is not to be a mean person. So why would I now turn myself into something negative to get something, to make something happen, or to get something for something to happen? It just doesn't make sense. You can't.
And obviously there are those people out there who are a bit cutthroat and are all that stereotype. But I've met some amazing people in the music industry, some amazing women. In fact, most of the opportunities I've had in my life have been through women who have gone through the door and held the door open for me. And that's now my policy. If a door opens for me, I'm opening it for somebody else to come through. And particularly women of colour, to be honest. They love to pitch us against each other and say there's only room for one, there's only room for one at the table. There isn't. And like that mentality is used as a divisive thing. And that's not been my experience at all.
Have you been in situations or known situations where you would have women of colour who are said gatekeepers but not open the door for others? Because I know there are industries that this happens. Is that the same for music as well?
I have to say, I haven't experienced that. I've experienced the opposite.
Yeah.
I've had people championing me, putting me forward. I've had really great examples of, and because they're few and far between, then I've had some great examples. Like I'm going to name check her, even though she'd be embarrassed. But the best boss I've ever had is Charmaine Noble-McLean.
Listen, let's wait.
She's going to be so embarrassed.
Wait. Let's just pause for a second. Let's just pause. Charmaine Noble-McLean. Listen, this woman is, how she's sustained her career for this long and just kept on going despite the madness that surrounds her. Like,
and the way she carries herself, and just,
you can only be like, I want to be like that.
Yeah. And I learned so much from her, because I could see people really misbehaving, and she just had this way. She would never shame anybody, and she just had the right balance of being, she was fun, she's hilarious, but again, you don't want to mess with her.
Oh no.
But she was incredibly fair, really fair, and she was such an encourager, and I was like, I want to be like that. I want to lead like, she was a great leader.
Yeah.
And so that was a great example. And yeah, I've had women just open the door for me, agree to meet up for a coffee. I've never been one of those people who pretends I know. I'm, like I just said, I'm making it up as I go along. I'm like, don't know the answer to that. I'm the one who will be at a record label meeting and go, sorry, can you explain what that is? And afterwards, I'd be like, I'm so glad you asked that, because I just didn't know what I meant either. And I'd rather ask and find out the answer than go away and
be like, oh, what?
Yeah, and then not know what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, the what you used to do when you were younger still follows you through to adulthood, like always asking the why.
The elephant in the room, I'm going to point to it.
Like, right. So why is this exactly? Because it's like, because you can like be in there, them talk, not understand, go out, make a mistake, and then find out later, oh, that was what that meant. That was, and it's like, no, just ask.
I think in the best possible way, if this doesn't sound too, I don't know, I don't actually really care what people think of me. I've always been like that. I don't care. Like, again, if someone's like, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about, it's like, fine, I'm still going to go and do a great job because I now know the answer. So I'd rather, rather than, trying to keep face and keep a certain image. Yeah. And again, I think I learned that, the hard way. And also it just, I think so many people are struggling in life and not being open about it. And even the people that we think are doing really well. And I would never want people, I constantly at any opportunity to talk about the things I've got wrong and that have gone wrong in my life, because I don't want somebody to look at me, and I'm aware with the things I do, it can look a certain way, and that is not the reality. You know, I'm a single mum. That's really tough. I've been through some really tough things. It's really difficult in the music industry. There's all of that at the same time. And I think even particularly, again, for women, this pressure to have it all and do it all, it's actually impossible. You can't. You can have it all. This is what somebody said to me, and I love this. You can have it all, but not at the same time.
That's so true. Yeah, you can, because I think there's a danger of like, oh, I got to have this now. I got to have this all at the same time. We're like, well, no, have one, do well, or whatever needs to happen with that, then go on to the next.
There's certain things that need more focus, but trying to be an amazing mum to my small children, as well as being a, you know, kick-ass manager and all of that. That's just, you can't be at all the things when you've got young children.
Which is what I wanted to talk to you about, motherhood and management, because obviously, you know, people want that dream career, they've got that dream career, and then they have a family, you know, you've got a young child or young children, and then, but yet you still want to be in this this sphere that you like so much. How was that? You know, did you have your son into your career and the management, or was it before? And then how did you manage to balance? How do you find the balance?
Well, I didn't balance. Like anyone who says and if anyone's got the answer, let me know, so I can pass on to my friends who are going, how do I do this? But it's really, really hard. Literally yesterday, I bumped into an amazing lady, again, another real sort of mentor figure on the tube. And she's got young children. I was like, you're smashing it. You're doing so well. And she's like, thank you. But it's really hard. And I really feel like I'm failing my kids at the minute. And nobody would know that. And she's not, by the way. And I said, by the way, I feel like that as well. And she's like, really? And this whole thing that we all think everyone's doing really well and I'm the only one struggling. I hate that. We need to be a bit more transparent about it. It's actually, I had 4 hours sleep last night and I'm still having to do this meeting. Well, it's a win that you did the meeting. Do you know what I mean? So it was really hard. So I had my son while I was at the radio station, and I started management at the same time as being at the radio station.
Wow.
But at one point, I had 4 forms of childcare a day. So I had to drop him off at breakfast club because of the time I had to leave. Then obviously there's school. Then there was after school club, but after school club finished before I was off air. So then I had to have somebody else who picked him up and walked him back. And then before I could get back from the radio station, there was someone who had to sit with him and do his dinner for that last half hour.
Oh my gosh.
And I felt so guilty. In fact, I remember on Facebook when I was looking for somebody like a young teenager or somebody who was responsible who would just walk him down from the school. Because I thought if you get a nanny for that, it's so expensive. And it's like for half an hour. So I put this Facebook group, hey, I'm looking for, you know, a responsible teen who, and this woman DM'd me and said, can I just say you're really harming your child with all this? Please, you know, if you're trying to have a career, think about your child. Like you're giving them all this different, you're on Facebook asking random people. And I was just like, and when I looked at her profile, I'm like, I can see you have your nice husband with his big wage looking after you. So with your nanny, that might be your reality, love, but it's not mine. And, you know, at the end of the day, I suppose I could have not worked and been on benefits.
That's not what you wanted.
It's not what I wanted. And also I was £20 better off working than being on benefits.
And people don't realise that.
This is real talk, because it wasn't much of an incentive. And I desperately still wanted my career, but it was at a cost. Every time I did a gig and then my child was up in the night and I felt rubbish in the morning, I was like, was it even worth doing that gig? There was plenty of times I'm like, is this actually worth it? When I started management, I remember picking up my son from nursery at school by then, coming back on the days that I finished earlier, doing the bath time, doing dinner, putting him to bed, sitting down, right, I'm going to write a press release and contact a load of radio stations, and then like nodding off like this. And then it'd be 11:30 and I'd look down, I'd written 2 lines, and then I'd go to bed. And because this child also tried to kill me through lack of sleep. This child got up at 5 a.m. and everyone said, when he goes to nursery, he'll sleep more. No. When he goes to school, this child until 8 years old got up at 5 o'clock every morning.
5 o'clock?
5 o'clock every morning.
Oh
I remind him of it now that he's a teenager and I have to wake him up. But the point was, I was like, I wasn't getting anything done. And then I had to adapt my life. So it's not balanced. But because I was up at 5 and I didn't have to leave till 7:30, I had these out. I mean, it was before the CBeebies had even started. It's on that annoying, weird loop thing. So I just sat him in front of that bad parenting. Here's a box, literally a box of sugary cereal. Do your worst. And I would bang out press releases. I would get so much done because I realised I was more awake at that time.
Yeah.
And then I would go do my job, get him. I was in bed by 9 p.m. I mean, I had no life for 2 years, but at least I had sleep and I was getting things done. So in terms of that work-life balance, you do what you can, you do the best you can. And of course, it got easier as he got older. But I'm never going to say to people every time I see a woman with young children doing anything, I'm like, you are amazing that you're even managing that. Yeah. I am never going to tell that story of, oh, yes, it was amazing. It wasn't. It was really hard.
Really hard because I felt like half the time, like, can someone just take this child away? Just do whatever you want.
And the guilt, the biggest thing is the guilt. Like you feel guilty if you stay at home, you feel guilty if you want a career. Whatever you do as a woman and as a mum, you feel guilt. But what I wanted to model for my son was also going for the life that I want and the dreams that I want. And I hope when he's older, he will be able to see the sacrifices that I made and the things that I did, so that I could have the life I wanted and also give him the life that he wanted as well. Absolutely. But yeah, it's hard.
God, honestly, like I my heart goes out to all mums who are doing it. Like I have friends who were mums as well, and I'm just like, God, like how? And it was almost just like preparing me for when I eventually have kids, and I'm just gonna be like, okay, so this is what life could potentially look like. Okay, all right. How am I going to do it? You know, this, that, the other. And obviously it's harder as a single mum because you're just like,
it helps just if you've got you. That. Yeah.
And you're basically doing two people's job, but, you know, with little help that they can. And, you know, and I guess like, I think what I really admire is that you still went after your dreams still. And yes, the sacrifice you made, but you still went after it.
Yeah, I wanted to as well. Like, again, I support whatever any woman wants to do. I don't at all knock people who want to be at home with their children. And like I said, that wasn't even a choice for me at the time. But also, I was a better mum when I was working. Not when I was working really hard, but I was always somebody who needed something else that I was doing as well. Like I really struggled, again, something people don't talk about is losing your whole identity of who you are as a woman when you become a mum and you're just somebody's mum. And I didn't want to just talk about nappies and, you know, the solids I was trying. I just found that so boring. Like I just really like, can somebody speak to me about something else? So a part of me came alive when I went back to work. I think my ideal would have been to be part-time and do that. But yeah, I felt like I was a better mum to be able to actually have an adult conversation and have some things that stimulated my brain a bit as well.
Instead of going goo goo gaga.
And I mean, I've got other friends who that's their thing and they're just like, I call them professional mums. Like I wish I was as good a mum as that. And they are and they pour everything into it and, you know, they don't mind getting the paints out and all the cooking and all of those things that I prefer them do at nursery.
Not at home, please.
And that's like, you could tell that's like their life calling and it's amazing to see.
I think that's great. And to be honest with you, I think seeing so many mums thriving and, you know, just listening and hearing the sacrifices that they made, but yet still doing great. For me, it's encouraging. It's just like, okay, like I can do this. You know, when it happens,
absolutely,
I can actually do it. So within all that time, you know, being a mom, doing management, doing radio, how was your relationship with God at that time? Like, did you feel that you drew away, or did you find a way to draw closer?
Definitely closer. So my marriage broke down just when my son was just over a year. And obviously that was like a massive thing because I just, again, a bit like becoming a Christian, that was not supposed to happen.
Nobody gets married to get divorced.
And especially if you're a Christian. So everything got rocked at that time and it was a really difficult time. I had a young son and it left me with a lot of different other issues to deal with as well. So it was a really, really difficult time. But I think I'd really went back to that point when I came to faith where I was like, this has got to work or not. Like, I'm not interested in just being a part of a nice club. This has got to make a difference. And if ever it's going to make a difference, it's going to be when I'm having a hard time. And it's really interesting because I really found out who my friends were around that time. And everything to me became more authentic. So around that time was when I was like, I'm going to put down everything to do with my faith, and I'm only going to pick up the things that I'm doing because it feels real and authentic. And so, I would say post that, I'm a very different kind of Christian than I was before that time. But I would say, well, I know that I've got a more authentic relationship with God than I've ever had. And it probably looks less like I'm not conventional. I don't even know what the word is. I know that there'll probably be some people who might doubt that. But again, I don't really care.
No, because you know where you are with God. You know what he's done for you, and you understand your relationship. You know, they say walk out your salvation, walk out your own salvation with God so that you know what that looks like and how it's helping you. You know, someone might look in and thinking, really? Like, well, yeah.
Do you know what's so funny? And I was just thinking about this the other day is a girl that I got friends with through being pregnant, like through the
mum's club,
like the prenatal,
postnatal,
prenatal, isn't it? Yeah. Anyway, we really got on. I didn't know her before then, and our babies ended up being born 24 hours apart. So we were on maternity leave at the same time. So we used to hang out. She lived around the corner. We found each other through locally. And that was literally the year that my life fell apart, right? So it was like everything was going so bad. And I just remember thinking, oh my gosh, this must be such a bad witness to this woman. Because she knew that I was a Christian. Anyway, a few months later, she came back and said, I've got something to tell you. And she's like, I've been going to an Alpha course and I've become a Christian. And I was like, what? And I was like, you didn't tell me. She said, no. But she said, I just want you to know that it's because of you. And I was like, are you joking? Like, my life is like the worst. And she said, no, it's about you've always spoken about it and how you've been dealing with this. It just made me want to go and find out for myself. And I was like, now that is amazing. Like, the time when I thought, this is not a good advert for how a Christian's life looks. But I was just really real about it. And that was really amazing to me. And it just always made me think about living out my true life and whether somebody likes it or not. I know for me, I wanted people to talk about, not look like their lives were perfect when they actually weren't, but actually have one person go, no, this is hard and this doesn't always work. And so that's why I've always been really vocal about the things that have gone wrong, so that people know they can talk to somebody about it.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think it's good to show the wrong, so that, because obviously you've been through the wrongs and then you're now doing well. Things have changed. I think it's important for people to really look at what happened before, so to really understand, this is why I'm here. This is how I got here, because it looks prim and perfect, but really, that is the one thing. That's that tough journey can be the thing to change. And I love the fact that she saw you at your lowest.
Yeah, and I had no idea.
I'm still
because somehow see little Jesus in there somewhere.
And I guess the Alpha course does talk about, it's not like everything's going to be perfect. You're going to go through hard times as well, but it's just how you navigate that. That time, that season.
But we don't always see examples. People, they go up the front and they say, I had this really hard time last year. And you're like, really? And like, but God got me through it. And you're like, you're saying it now, you're in it. I want to speak to someone while they're in it. I was desperate for someone while they were in it to go, how you get, we know Friday and we know Sunday, we know Good Friday, we know the resurrection, but I'm always been fascinated at Saturday, that middle space between when it looks like, what, this wasn't meant to happen, like, what, Jesus died on the cross, what, and that space for 24 hours when you're like, this does not look okay. That's the space I've always been obsessed with. People who are living in that space when their dream or their thing they're holding out for hasn't happened yet. Like, how do you live then? Because it's all very well people go and test me this, that and the other, and like, I'm not there. That doesn't help me. It just feels like you've got a blessing and I haven't. What am I doing wrong? And you're not doing anything wrong. It's life. It's called life.
Life will life you the way it wants to, but you've got to take something from it. You've got to learn something from it, should you choose to do that. So that's just, I think that's just, it's amazing. I love to hear that. So now that you are, you're now a manager, you've got, I guess you've now officially signed Gov, who is a great. If you don't know about Gov B, you've been living under a rock. So please go and find out about him. Amazing. And then, you take on more artists. Like, was it daunting for you to take on more artists?
Yeah. So I know this is quite a unique way round, but all of my artists have asked me to manage them. Most managers, I think they go find artists.
They go find people, yeah.
So so there's obviously Governor B, who I know, like I said, originally we were just sort of partnering. Mm-hmm. We called it sort of co-project managing or something. And then Joshua Luke Smith, who I interviewed on my radio show. And I just thought he was so incredible. And I think initially I just helped him book a few shows. And he had resisted having a manager. And I wasn't really managing then. I was just doing the thing with Gov.
Bits, yeah.
And he said to me, have you ever thought about being a manager? I thought you'd make a good manager. And I'd be like, oh, not you as well. And he's like, if ever I was going to have a manager, I would love it to be you. And I was like, what's that based on? I'm literally not a manager. And he's like, we just really had a very similar vision. And I just thought he was incredibly talented. I still do. So then I started managing Josh. And then I was like, I felt at full capacity with 2. And then Bianca Rose, who'd been a friend of mine for a long time, incredible. I just always felt that she was just so underrated. And I think initially I helped her book a tour. She said, I really want to do a tour. Would you help me book it? And I was like, yeah. So I helped her book this 8-date tour. And then I helped her a few other things. And she was like, you're kind of managing me. And I was like, no, I'm not having another artist. I'm not. I was like, I can't. I'm still working. I can't do 3. And she's like, what about if you just do what you've been doing? And so I was like, okay, then. So then I was with 3 and I was at full capacity. And then I'd known Jake Isaac for a long time. And then he asked me if I would manage him. And I was just like, no. I was like, I was so intimidated because I was just like, you're incredible and you're much further on. Like, why would you ask me? And by that stage, I'd been doing it for maybe 3 or 4 years. Mm. And he was just saying that, I've watched what you've done with Gov and, I'd love to just work with you. And then we weren't going to do it. And then I really didn't feel, I had imposter syndrome and, like we all have. And then the opportunity came around again. And by then I'd really felt challenged to, do I want to grow this safe music thing or stay in my comfort zone? So each artist, I said, I'm not taking on another one. And then by that time I had 4. So I worked with Jake for 3.5 years. I don't manage him anymore, but for 3.5 years we worked together. And at one point in that, I also for 1 year managed Madison Ryan Ward as well. Yes. So at one point I had 5. Jeez. And every artist I took on, I said, I'm not taking on another one. I'm back to 3 now and it's just about manageable. But yeah, it's all been very organically. It's not like I've looked out for artists. It's happened.
So they've come to you, they've come searching for you. And I think they're saying, your gifts will make room for you. So your gift had already been shining, people had been seeing, and they were like, oh, I want that. And I guess it's helped them in their career. So you clearly have a talent. And like you said, God had been preparing you all the way through. All the little things that you had been doing, it had been preparing you for this, which I think is amazing. Even though we don't want to see it. We don't want to see it. We want to be disobedient to it. But then eventually you're just like, oh, okay, let's see. And then look what happens. Like, you guys... Because obviously I watch how you've, worked with Gav and Josh and even, Jake when you had him in Madison. At one point, I was jealous. I can't even lie. And I'm like, yo.
If you'd actually see my life at that point, it was very stressful.
I was like, I was like, man, she's got all these great artists. Like, this is what I would have wanted to have happened years ago, managing all these great artists kind of thing. And I was just like, oh, how should I said, nah, this is amazing. This is so good. Yeah, I hold my hand up. I was jealous. I really was jealous.
Because I am a genuine fan of all of my artists, and I honestly see it as such a privilege to be able to guard someone's art. Artists do something so vulnerable to put their own art out there in the world. So it honestly felt like such a privilege. So I honestly sometimes was looking and going, this is amazing. I get to work with these artists and what am I doing here? This is incredible. But yeah, opportunities that are given to you, particularly the ones that you don't chase, you almost don't have a right to go, what am I doing here?
Yeah, you're like,
there's always going to be someone who's better than you or more connected or this, that, the other. I always go, what is mine to do? And what have I been entrusted to do? What is in your hands? And use that. And yeah, I've definitely made lots of mistakes along the way and definitely got things wrong. And there's also been some incredible experiences, and I've loved every minute. And like I said, just mainly just see it as a real privilege to work with the artists I do, because I think they're wonderful people and hugely talented artists.
Yeah, definitely. So the music business is a very cutthroat business. Like, it's unforgiving at times. But how it's easy for someone to come in and, be a Christian, and then because of something, find they're now stray the other way, like leaving their faith behind, leaving God behind, and then chasing after something. How have you managed to maintain that? Because like, it's so easy, because yes, the industry is fickle, it's unforgiving, there's so much to it, but like, how have you maintained your faith in that? Because like, this industry is wild, very wild, and you see things and you hear things, you're just like, oh my God, how have you managed that? Like, how have you been able to do it?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything you said there is true, but I also don't think the music is any wilder than the banking industry or estate agents or I tell you what, school mums at the school gate. They can be that class WhatsApp group. I had to exit that group.
Really?
Honestly. Yeah. So it's like life is hard and people are difficult and you get good people and bad people. And I don't think it's an industry or an environment that can rock our faith. I think we have to have an authentic faith, and life rocks us as people. And we have to, that's why when I see people who haven't yet gone, because all of us will go through something that floors us and challenges us. And that whatever you do, that's going to happen. So when I see people blissfully going through life, judging others who haven't yet had theirs, I'm like,
yours is coming.
And I don't mean
not in a bad way,
but just as in you will look at people differently when you've been through hard things, and you have so much more grace for people, and everybody's just trying their best. And I don't feel that I was any more challenged working in the music industry, in the mainstream music industry, than when I worked at a Christian radio station. Like, in fact, sometimes, at least with non-Christians, they're open about what they're doing.
But
they're not pretending to be something they're not. So, yeah, I said that. So, but yeah, so I mean, in terms of how I've maintained my faith, it's almost like saying, how have you maintained being a person? You know, to me, what my faith is about working out the best version of myself and why I'm meant to be here. And in the little corner, whoever's entrusted around me, friends, my child, artists, how am I impacting them? How am I living my life around them and in an authentic way? So whatever I do, whatever I go into, I hope that I've been through the fire enough to just do that. So I never find it difficult to, being a Christian is who I am. So I'm just who I am, where I am. But I definitely think if I went to some churches, they would probably think I'm not a Christian. So, you know, I do sometimes feel like I'm in this space where some Christians might think I'm not Christian enough. And then, you know, on the other side, people might think you're too Christian, but I'm me and I'm not changing for anyone. And this is how I am. So I don't know. I do get the question that you're asking. Like, is it hard to be a Christian? But no, I think it's hard to be a person anywhere. And I just think that our challenge is to be true to ourselves. And when you're convicted with that and what that means, and you're sure of the type of person that you want to be. And I want to be a person that makes people around me feel a little bit more comfortable with being their true selves, asking the difficult questions, moving closer to who they're meant to be, brings out the best in people, anyone who has any interaction with me goes away feeling better rather than worse.
Come on.
And that to me is being a Christian. So I don't know. I used to separate it so much more than I do now. And I think that's the goal for me, is that it's not separated, that I'm the same person I am wherever I am.
Yeah. Well, same with Christ. He was the same, wherever he went. He didn't mix who he was. He was authentically him. So I guess trying to emulate that is pretty much what you're doing. And I love it. And I'm just like, I honestly like just watching you from behind the scenes is amazing, and the stuff that you've accomplished. And I'm so glad I get to sit with you properly to talk about this, because for me it's been.
We have to do a podcast to catch up.
It's so bad. It's so bad because I've always said, "Oh, I need to get you on." I've this, that. I think I've been saying it to you for God knows how many years, and then finally we're here, and I was like, "Oh, thank God that this is the right time to do it." Well, I know for me anyway. It took a while, but we got here. So I'm just really in awe of your accomplishments and everything that you have, and the whole management thing. And I'm so glad that you are. Your heart is there, your passion is there. And I think that's what the industry needs, like women like that, like who are authentic, who are compassionate, and who believe in their artists as well. And you're doing that. And, I thought I had the grace for it for a while. Maybe I still do in a little way, but I think, learning.
I think you'd be a great manager.
Who? Me?
Yeah. I've always said it.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe later on in life. I mean, having the opportunity, I think one of the greatest, like one of the arts I've been able to manage a few artists, and they've done exceptionally well, and seeing them in their careers and what they've done has been amazing. I think my first artist that I managed was Sharon Rose, and I remember emailing you to get her onto your show, onto the Unsigned show, and she eventually went on. I was like, honestly, when she got that, I was like, yes, finally, like, come on. And then since then, and obviously I don't do it now, but seeing her career grow from, behind the scenes, from, music to theatre to stage, amazing. So yeah, who knows, maybe one day back again, maybe one day.
I hope so.
I may venture back into it, but we'll see and stuff. So before we wrap up, there's a thing that we're going to be doing. It's like a little masterclass. Obviously, you are an artist, and you also you are a music manager. So I want you to give us a quick masterclass on tips for artists, for independent artists, and then also things for a manager. If they're upcoming music manager, if they want to venture into the music management world, what they need to think of, what they need to be doing, what they shouldn't be compromising, and how to use their faith, to keep their faith in those positions.
Okay, which one do you want me to do first?
Let's start with the artist.
Okay. So I teach on a songwriting BA course a couple of afternoons a week, and I always say to my students that the 3 things you need to make a sustainable career as an independent artist, and they're like, what, just 3? And I'm like, this encompasses a lot. And I say it's excellence, persistence, and consistence. And that sounds so simplistic, but it's not enough to have just one, or even to have 2 of them. You've got to have all 3 of those. Like, it goes without saying, first and foremost, their music, their voice, or their craft needs to be honed to the best of its ability. You must be excellent. That goes without saying. But you also need to make sure that you're consistent. And consistent doesn't mean often, by the way. People are like, oh yeah, I've got to be on socials every day. I've got to be releasing a track every month. No, but what you don't want to do is do something every day for 2 weeks and then disappear for 6 months. The consistency is what's going to build your career. And of course, the persistence, or another way of saying that is resilience. You have to keep going. It's taken a long time to build my artist careers. And each time a win is when you're further on than the campaign before.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's so easy for artists to be disappointed that they're not going fast enough or wide enough. But let your measure be that thing of beating your personal best and just doing better, and then just be persistent in that. And I really believe with those 3 things, you can work towards having a sustainable career. So if I had to just say, I mean, there's so many things, but if I had to say a snapshot, then probably that would be my advice for artists.
Woof. Love it. Love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. All right. So for music managers, for managers that want to venture into this world, what's your quick fire masterclass for them?
Yeah, this is a hard one because I still feel like I'm learning so much all the time. I think maybe decide the kind of manager you want to be. And what I mean by that is, what I've realized is there's not just one type of manager. And I've been told that I manage quite unconventionally or do things different. And I don't know what that means because I don't know
whatever.
Yeah, I've not done the degree or whatever.
Yeah.
But I put myself into what I do. And I think that the main thing is, again, just to be passionate about your artist's music, so that even if they're not in the room, you can represent them as if they are there. You know, I have spoke to a manager a couple of years ago who said to me, "Oh, are you a fan of your artist's music?" And I was like, "Yeah."
Why wouldn't I be?
And they were like,
and
I said, "Are you not?" Then said, "Oh, one of them I quite like the music. The other one's not really my thing." And again, that's fine because they just manage in a very business-like way goals and reaching these goals. But for me, I need to be really passionate about my artists and who they are. So that's what I mean by decide what kind of man. There's not a right or wrong, but it's a very close relationship with the artist. So you've got to make sure that you connect in that way. And learning to communicate. You might have 4 artists and they all need different things, or you communicate to them the same thing differently. So it's very relationally. Most of it is managing expectations and understanding people, how people are. So I guess work on that, and then just working really hard, being willing to, you know, just really put yourself out there for your artist. And just you've got to believe in them. You and them are always going to be the hardest working people on the team. Even if you get signed, you're still the hardest working people on the team. So knowing that as well is probably a good tip to get your head around before you do it.
Fantastic. There you go. I hope that has helped. I know I've learned a lot just sitting and listening to that, and it's definitely things that I can take on for future. Should I decide to go down that route again? Should, you know, but Loretta, it's been amazing to have you.
Thank you for having me
on this series. I just really hope that, you know, those who are looking to get into this side of the industry when it comes to music management and are Christians, really not to lose themselves and to really understand the business as well. And and how, you know, your faith can guide you through this different spheres. So
and have good people around you who you can be really honest with, who have got your back. And
100%, so thank you for taking up the space that you are in. We appreciate you. We love you. Continue to thrive, because I know there's going to be so much more to you as well. You've also got a book. Sorry, just real quickly. You've got a book as well, haven't you? You published a book.
Yeah.
What's the book and where can they get it?
So the book is called Talking to Children About Race. It wasn't, again, something that I planned to do, like most things in my life, the way the opportunity came out. But I'm so glad it's out there in the world. And you can get it from like all bookshops. And I wrote it with a friend of mine, Ruth Hill.
Amazing. And it's a great book, guys. Please go and get it and understand it, especially for your kids as well. But amazing. How can people get in touch with you, you know, when it comes to advice on being an artist, doing management, music business, all that kind of stuff? How can they get in touch?
Well, they can find me on Instagram. I actually use my Loretta Andrews one more than the Safe Music one. And I've got a website, safemusicmanagement.com. I do offer some artist consultancy, development coaching for artists as well when I have time. They're probably the best places to get in touch with me.
Sweet. Make sure you do Loretta Andrews on Instagram and safemusicmanagement.com on the web. She'll be happy to take calls and emails and all that kind of stuff anyway. So yes. All right. So thank you so much once again. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening if you are streaming on streaming platforms, and of course on the tube as well. Much appreciated. You know what to do. Like, subscribe and share and all that kind of stuff. I can't believe I'm actually saying that, but here I am saying it. So yes, until next time, stay blessed.